Welcome to Corporate Cafecito, a podcast based on professional development, career growth, and respecting our cultural identity. Hi, everybody. Bienvenidos. Welcome back to Corporate Cafecito. Yo soy Nayeli Suarez Gas, and today I have a very special guest. They're all very special, but I'm going to tell you why she's really special. And then I'll let you introduce yourself,
okay.
Teresa. When we think about the strides our community has made in education, in getting more involved, in growing, sometimes we need those cheerleaders that are like pushing us up and making us do things. And that's what Teresa has made her career. Like, she's turned that passion for education into a career. So why don't you tell everybody about you?
Sure. So buenas tardes, everyone. My name is Teresa Guia, and I a proud Chicagoan, a proud Southsider, whose advocacy is to empower others through education. I mission myself to create opportunities not only for our community, but at the community at large, especially being an immigrant myself, as well as my mom being the anchor here for like all of her family who also migrated from Mexico.
You know, we always have that saying, like, un invitado invita cien. But that's pretty much how our community has gotten here, right? So, like, we get here and we bring our cousin or we bring our uncle. I remember lots of times growing up, we always had someone living with us or, you know, bringing other people up. So tell us a little bit about that, about your mom.
Yeah, so my mom migrated here with her cousins in the 80s. She used to tell me, you know, I slept on the floor of an apartment because we were all sharing 2-bedroom apartments on Fullerton on the north side. And, you know, my mom was lucky to have my grandparents' support. So I was able to stay with my grandparents until I was 8, actually. So in Mexico. And then my mom decided to bring me over once she was settled on the south side. I guess it was too crowded on the north side. So she, you know, ventured out to the south side, and that's where my little life journey began. I remember being in 3rd grade and telling one of my teachers that I wanted to be the president of the United States, right? And when she told me that...
She's close.
Well, and then when she told me, she's like, well, you can't be the president. I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh, because you have to be born.
Right.
Yeah.
But at 3rd grade, I didn't understand that you had to be born in the United States, right? Because I recently migrated, so not really understanding everything or knowing the history of the United States yet. But I'm like, okay, but I'm still going to lead a change, whatever the case may be. And I think that is the reason, not only because that 3rd grade teacher, like, impacted my life in the, like, no, but, like, she didn't say, no, but you could do this, right? She just said, no, you can't do that. And it took me a while to understand the educational systems and all of that. So I've built my career on that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go into business. I'll have my own business, creating all of these different things. And then I started working in education. And I started working with inner city youth and seeing how, one, si se puede, you got this, don't give up, you could do this, can really change somebody's life.
Yes.
That after that, it was like, okay, I got my master's in business administration, but I'm going to education, which but really upset my parents for a minute. Because, like, tienes todos estos student loans, how are you going to pay with that, with the teacher salary? Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's really interesting because when we think about, you know, when you think about, like, your parents, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I feel my parents too, when you get a business degree, they're like, you should do business. But they don't know, like, what that business is. I used to work for PepsiCo, and I used to call on chains like 7-Eleven, Circle K, like big chains. And my parents would be like, oh, yeah, vendes Cheetos. I'm like, yeah, but it's a lot. Yeah, you know. But I think that, you know, thinking about how you know, pay the bills, like we always have like my dad would still be like, métete computadoras, you know, and business. But you've done really well in education. Like, so tell me about your career in education, because She's not a teacher, guys.
No, I'm not a teacher anymore. So my career in education started working with Trio. So I was a recruiter, an academic coach, and I used to go to a lot of different high schools, and recruit some of the students, try to give them their pathways, because I think that when it comes to Black and brown communities, a lot of the time people think their way out is through sports or through, I don't know, acting or just celebrities, right? And I think that our community is more than that. So just implanting that. And so from there, I went on to a different institution where I was there for a long time, about 6 years. Maybe that's not a long time.
It is now. Like, a lot of people are leaving after 18 months, 24 months.
2 years. Yeah. And they're like, okay, I'm ready for my next move. But that's where I learned the corporate side of education. There, I was able to go from one position to the next, but retrospectively looking at it, I should have gotten bigger pay raises than what I did receive, and positions that were maybe already in line with me weren't offered to me.
When you think about having better pay, I think one of the things that we struggle with is asking for the money, right?
Yeah.
Going in and saying, like, no, like, I want this much. And so I've done several episodes on how to negotiate your offer. And I was able to help someone, and she's like, I got $7,000 more. And I'm like, yeah, because you need to ask. And sometimes we get so excited from the opportunity, or even to be able to manage people, that we just take whatever. And it's like, no, you have to make sure to ask for that money, and know that, your counterparts, whether it's a man or a white man or a white woman, they're going to ask for it because they know to ask for it. Unfortunately or fortunately, like sometimes, our generation had to kind of learn it so we could help the next generation and be like, you know what, guys, negotiate.
Yeah, like something that my mom told me in her humble way, because, my mom trabajaba in like factories, and she told me, she's like, mija, sometimes you're not going to earn the money, but at least you're learning. And let that learning not go to waste for your next big opportunity. Yeah. So when I left that toxic corporate / education area, and I met the city colleges of Chicago, and since joining City Colleges of Chicago, or being part of City Colleges of Chicago, I've been able to grow my career tremendously. I've had the cheerleaders that have come before me, right? And who've paved their own way in like being amazing, dynamic leaders who saw something in me and were able to offer that opportunity. But I also like now think back and say like, okay, yeah, like I'm not just going to take a position because I'm going to just take it. No, I also have to think about like our mental health, or what, like also you have to stack up wealth, because, being a mom of 3, I need to make sure that my kids are set.
100%.
So like you said, like if you don't ask, it's not going to be given, right? No. Closed mouths don't get fat, as they say. So like now even education is changing a lot, right? You go from having trades for students to having degrees, to know the trades are better than the degrees, and so forth and so on. And it's like I always tell our students, like, even if you start with the trades, don't ever forget to go back and finish your degree, because te me vas a hacer viejito and you're not going to want to climb on a roof and change an HVAC system, right? You're going to want to make sure that you have your own degree, run your own business. And maybe you don't even need to get a degree as far as a business degree, right? But you could go back and get a business certificate. Just empower yourself with the knowledge. And it's always better to know what you're getting into, especially because in a lot of spaces, you're going to be the first, even if it feels like, oh my God, we're in 2024, but we're still hearing that, like, the first Latina president, the first Black president at this university, who's a university that's been here for hundreds of years, right? Yeah. And especially when you're seeing the Latino trend of students increasing in enrollment, and it's like, where's the representation? Because representation definitely matters.
Oh, 1,000%. And I think that when we look back, right, when we went to, I went to UIC, but I also took classes at the city colleges of Chicago. I went to Wright. I went to Harold Washington. I went to Harold Washington because I wanted to be downtown because I knew that's where all the business happened. And I would tell my dad, he still makes fun of me because I would be like, quiero estar en el downtown porque ahí está toda la acción. I was like, that's where I'm going to be. But to have that, you're right. Like, we got to keep moving forward because we are going to get to that age where our bodies get tired and we need to have something to fall back on if you do a trade. Now, you talk about that, and I know the reason I met Teresa is because you have been a very big advocate for someone that, is part of my family, that you've pushed forward. And so you're not just saying this for the young people. Like, young people, yes, go to college, but you're also pushing people to, like, our age to get their GED and to keep moving forward.
Yes, especially because, so I think about my mom, because my mom in Mexico, still to this day, she's still a badass, right? But she was a badass in Mexico. She was chief of police, so she was a federal agent in Mexico, Michoacán, en la parte del Estado Federal. So she had all that, and then when she migrated over here, she lost all that, right? She didn't have somebody who told her, like, hey, you know what, learn English, get your credits evaluated, and go out and become a Chicago police officer because you're going to make the money. Like, my mom could take apart a gun and put it right back together. Clean it up. Like, what I'm telling you, like...
I'm sure that was when you were dating Teresa, she'd be like...
Yeah, and so that's part of that, like, is also my motivation, because actually Daly College is who opened the doors for my mom to learn English and to get her GED, even though she had her high school in Mexico, but there was nobody there to meet her where she was at. And that's, like, my sole purpose, to ensure that the programs that I oversee meet the students where they're at, right? Because if the students knew that they could do that and more, like, it would change their lives completely, because you don't have to start at a factory. I mean, ya sé, tenemos que comer, and you have to live somewhere, right? But you don't have to live in you don't have to work in a factory if you have that prior education. Like, I see that now, like, we're seeing people who have doctorate degrees, who are engineers in their country, and they come for a better life, right? And I'm not saying that these jobs are beneath them, and I'm not saying that these jobs are not respectable or anything like that, but everybody wants more. And it's never too late, right? So it's always about making sure that we help one another. And so creating those pathways, creating the accessibility to their education is, like, my number one, like, most important thing.
Yeah, and I think, one, I know personally that you do it really well. I love what you're saying. I have a friend, and when her parents moved up here, she was like, we came from a nice house in Mexico to being in, like, a one-bedroom apartment on 26th Street. Her dad was a chemist.
Wow.
But you can't be a chemist over here with a chemist degree from Mexico. And he never validated his transfer.
Right.
Why? Because he didn't know how to, right? We don't know how to. And so we get here, and it's like starting over.
Right.
So what are some of the programs that are available? Because we have a broad reach here, right? So we're not just talking about Illinois. Talk about Illinois, and then I encourage you guys to go out and look at your city colleges, because there are probably similar programs that are out there too.
Yeah, so we're 7 strong. So there's 7 city colleges across Chicago. And I oversee the adult education program at 2 of them. So at Daly and at Kennedy King. So a huge shout out to the South Side. We have a lot of different trades into manufacturing, HVAC, automotive, culinary arts. We also have IT, we have business, we have engineering. And a lot of those trades are now being accessible to our students, because we have a position at City Colleges of Chicago that's called a transition specialist, who is there to support you in every step of your journey, to help you ensure that either A, you get your credits evaluated, or B, you start your pathway to whatever step is after your high school equivalency or your enough English language acquisition, so that you can continue to grow and be whoever it is that you out to see. I'm so proud this semester we kicked off our first ever, well, in adult education because they've offered it at Kennedy King before. And I think that people just don't know. But we offered our first adult education bridge culinary arts program fully in Spanish.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I had tears in my eyes because some of the students were like, man, like in my home country, like you have to have money in order to go to school. I've always dreamt of being a chef. I love being in the kitchen. I love doing this and that. And they're like, for the fact that I have this opportunity, I will forever be grateful. Right.
And in your language where you can understand everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And then not only that, we're also equipping the students with the English language acquisition. So once they have their certification, they also are learning English so that they can communicate and they can go on these job interviews and land these jobs or open up their own business, right? We are also encouraging the students to continue their education and maybe taking some entrepreneurial classes so that they know how to start up their own business legally, even if you're undocumented, right? Because there's all those resources for those students to open up their own businesses. But if you don't know,
you don't. Like I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, open awesome. Up a business. Yeah. With your I-10, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Because, our culture, we love opening up businesses. Like,
tell me about it. We have a couple of them in my own home.
So how many people go through this program in a year? Like, what's the goal?
So in our adult, which program? The culinary one. So right now, our goal is to get as many we can, right? Mm-hmm. It's a 12-week program. And currently we have enrolled 12 students. So we start off small because you're in the kitchen. You're in the kitchen too. And it's small classes so that you have that attention from the chef.
Yes.
Because your teacher is a full-blown chef. So, you're getting really good hands-on experience. And our goal is to continue offering it every 12 weeks and ensuring that students are ready for the workforce.
How do they pay for that, the students?
Oh, they don't.
Oh, see? That was a trick question. I knew the answer.
They don't get to pay for that. We help them pay for that with our grants and scholarships that we have at City Colleges of Chicago, where we're making sure that you're not the first. Well, you are the first in your family, but definitely not the last, right? So you could take benefit from our bridge programs where they have free tuition, from our gateway program. So our bridge programs are the ones that our students are enrolled where they're getting ESL or completing their high school equivalency at the same time as getting their certificate. So that goes through the bridge, and that's the tuition. We cover it. Mm-hmm. And actually, we even have a grant right now called Career Growth Chicago, where students receive a stipend of $325 just to study. Wow. So whether that goes towards your rent, so you don't have to work overtime that week, so that you could get through finals or get whatever you need, or gas in your tank, a lot of the barriers that our students face, we try to eliminate them so that they could be successful. And then the Gateway Scholarship also pays 50% of their tuition. So after the basic certificate, if you want to go on and get your advanced certificate or your associate's degree, that Gateway Scholarship follows you. And did I mention it's undocumented friendly? So if you are undocumented, we're your allies. So
I love it.
And that helps them. Mm-hmm.
How can we be your allies? How do we help you? Because we
sign them off.
I was like, we need you to keep winning. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure like that, you also have the support of your community, so you could keep supporting our community.
Yeah. So our program we see about, in total, like our ESL program, between Kennedy King and Daly, annually about 5,000 students. So we're impacting those lives, right? And across the 6 colleges of Chicago, our last data that I looked at, we have impacted over 13,000 students' lives all across the city. So whenever you see the City Colleges of Chicago, Los Colegios de Chicago, feel free to go to any of those locations. We're going to be there to serve you. At every single one of those colleges, except for Harold Washington, that is located downtown, we have adult education classes that are free for our students. They can learn English for free. They could get their GED for free, even a basic certificate for free. And this is to empower our community, right? So if you live anywhere near those locations, always go and check out what we have to offer. And then another thing, we also have satellite locations. So if say that daily is not accessible to you, right? Say you live closer to La Villita. Well, we have Arturo Velasquez right there in the heart of La Villita, and between Pilsen and La Villita, right? Then same thing, we have Dawson Technical Institute right on 39th and State. So we have locations everywhere. And then we're also working on getting our offsites, whereas where we take the services to local churches or local elementary schools where maybe it's more accessible to moms, right? They could drop off their kid at school and then they could go to classes themselves, right? Just empowering them to be able to communicate with their teachers, doctors, if they have to go to the doctors, so it's all about making sure that our students and our community thrives.
Is there an opportunity, because a lot of our listeners and viewers are entrepreneurs, is there a way for them to connect with you, maybe to hire some of your students?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We're always looking for employment partnerships. Some of our students are the best students, are going to be your best employees. We have a numerous amount of industries that we work with. So feel free to, reach out to me on my LinkedIn and I could connect you with who you may need to get connected with. I'm a huge advocate of making sure that I look back because I think that saying in Spanish, like el peor enemigo de un mexicano es otro or something like that. I've heard that many times and it's not that. I think that us as Latinos, I
think that's changed.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, as community members need to ensure that we help one another out. So if 100%. You have availability to even give our students an internship, a shot to learn at what you're doing, great, reach out to us because we would love to get our culinary students in your restaurant, right? We would love to get our HVAC technicians.
Opening restaurants.
Right. Yeah, and even our HVAC technician, or I forgot to mention our construction trades as well. Like we have a lot of our students in those as well. Just reach out and I'll be more than happy to, connect you with our employer partner, relation specialist and get those connections started.
I love it. We've talked about your mom. We've talked about your big heart and how you got it, how she pushed you and how you're pushing others. Talk to us a little bit about your babies.
Oh, my baby. So I have I'm going to talk about my little one because they just gave me the cutest cup for Mother's Day. It's a superhero Mother's Day. And my youngest, my husband had them choose their superhero because they had a Wonder Woman. Of course, that's me. And my youngest, who is turning 5 this June, she picked the Hulk. And I'm like, that's just her energy. She's tiny and so she's not fragile at all. But super tiny, and she picked the Hulk, and we're just cracking up. And then I have my 6-year-old son, and then my 10-year-old daughter. Yeah.
So, what are some tips as a mom? How do you balance?
You don't. I'm you don't balance. Sometimes, you're the best mom that week.
That's probably a very accurate response. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm the best mom that week, and then sometimes I'm like, damn, I could have done that a lot better. But it's really thinking about prioritizing your week. Just how we prioritize work tasks, we prioritize those things, right? Yeah. And I'm so lucky to have the village that I have because my mom steps in, my in-law steps in, my dad steps in, my siblings would step in.
Just like we would in Mexico. Yep. Just like Mexico, right? It takes that community, everyone living around you or I just moved my parents in they're 7 houses down from me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
And I'm just okay, such and such day, they're going to go to your house after school. And, and then, my mom has sopa de fideo and tacos de frijoles, which is the best.
Right. Yeah. Yes. No, and the kids too, they'll be oh, Nana took us here. I'm like, Ma, they don't always have to eat out. I'm they could eat home food or stuff. She's no, son mis babies, so I'm going to spoil them. I think that's one thing that we need to have a different conversation on. Is how do we manage that whole relationship of seeing your parents be grandparents, then remembering the parents you had, and you're you didn't used to cut my waffles in little heart shapes.
Oh my God. My parents, every time they see them, fui a la Walgreens y vi esto y sé que les gustan. So I told them, I'm stop. The hardest thing that I'm working on with my parents, and they'll hear this, so sorry.
Sorry.
I told them to stop feeding them. When they're my mom will make them food, and then she'll be ¿Quieres más? And then they're no, gracias. And she's ¿Quieres esto? ¿Quieres fresas? ¿Quieres fresas con crema? And I'm just like, they said no. Like, stop. This is why we have obesity in our community, because no queremos, like, we don't want to, like, stop feeding the children.
Right. No, that's another thing. I'm telling you, it's a whole different podcast on how you manage that, even that.
Yeah, no, you're right. But you know what? They're loved.
Oh, yeah.
And they're lucky to be around their grandparents. You know, my grandparents were always in Mexico. And so, well, I have my mom's grandparents. My mom's mom here. My grandfather worked on the railroad, and he came here. Like, it's so funny. He retired in like 1985.
Wow.
And he's still alive.
Okay.
And so he's had like the longest pension of the railroad ever.
What? 1980. That's almost 40 years, right?
I know.
If I'm doing the math right.
He's like 90.
Or no, or maybe more than 40 years.
He's 98.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be 40 years. Yeah, because he had already put in like 40 years of service. I know.
Okay. Congratulations, Sam.
Thank you. Well, we know Teresa gets her big heart from her family, which is lovely, and that you have been, you know, I think, you know, we always say, I forget the saying because I don't have a little daughter, but it's something like strong women, may we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. Yes. And I think your mom just really is that person, and so are you, and as you raise your little Hulk.
Yeah, for sure, my little Hulk.
But know that, you know, Teresa talks about her kids, but she takes amazing care of everyone that comes under her wing. And I've personally seen you push people and I see my friends' faces and their professional happiness. Oh, I'm getting choked up. And I know that you did that.
Oh,
so, like,
don't do that, because I'm the biggest crybaby and they will tell you that.
So, yes. So thank you for what you do for all of us. And if you want to hire, want a partner, want to come talk to her.
And actually, if you want to work for us at City Colleges, we are hiring. I am in desperate need of teachers. So we have a big hiring fair coming up at Malcolm X for adult educators. So if you want to be part of the change in the community and teach ESL or GED classes, come see us. I believe the date is June 21st. Don't quote me on it. I'll send that information. But yes, all of that and more.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Look her up on LinkedIn, and then we'll see you on our next cafecito. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.